to be looking at what we would call global strategies for sales promotion. Now, the first thing we need to remember that whatever it is, when we're going outside of our own country, so expanding our markets, let's say, or going into new ones completely, then obviously there's an awful lot we do have to consider. For anything in terms of expanding the business into another market, obviously we would be looking at a variety of things that are going to affect the business as a whole. But obviously what we're going to be concentrating on today is how the sales promotion, how we promote those things, so above and below the line promotions, how they will vary in different countries, how things are perceived in different countries, the kind of things we can do and can't do. And we'll also be looking at some examples where some companies have done a good job of that, and some where they've done an absolute terrible job. There's so many things to consider, rather than just the fact of assuming it's exactly the same country, just merely translating the material that we have. And we'll be looking at some specific details, and then sort of at the end we've got some examples of what some companies did that didn't work. Some I've given the answers, and some I'll leave for you to think about and ask you in the conversation what you think was the problem. So it requires a little bit of investigation after you've seen the material. So make sure you go through all of it to the end, read those questions, and then maybe you have to do some investigation on your own about that. So let's get started. Excuse me, I have a bit of a cold, so bear with my coughing during the presentation. As we know, the definition of promotion, one of the 4 elements of the marketing mix, obviously the others being product, price, and place. It's the communication link between the sellers and the buyers for the purpose of influencing, informing, or persuading a potential buyer's purchasing decision. Now, the reason why I'm repeating this is because it's, as you're aware, things of influencing, informing, or persuading. When those buyers or potential buyers are different from different cultures, different backgrounds, then obviously the things that either require to persuade them or influence them are different, and we have to be very much aware of this. So this is why I'm going through the trouble of reiterating this. Now, promotion may involve activities such as personal selling, advertising, sales promotion, and direct marketing. So again, there are things to consider of this, various factors. When we're doing these kind of things, promoting products or services outside of our own country or our own particular region or our own particular background of what we're used to, what we are. If you consider what the question of culture is overall, it's how we see ourselves and how we see others. The biggest question is whether a company should use standard promotion strategies for all their markets, or to adopt various strategies for each of the different markets. Now, obviously, there's going to be an advantage and disadvantage of each one. Obviously, an advantage of standardization or economies of scale. In other words, we can produce one particular advert that can be used throughout the entire world. And obviously, a consistent image or a style or whatever can be established across all the markets. Creative talent can be utilized across markets, and good ideas can be transplanted from one market to another. The problem is that's not always the case, and we're not always in a position to do that. So again, we have to investigate, we have to consider things very carefully. And you'd be surprised how many very large companies, worldwide global companies, do not do that. They do make assumptions that literally everybody's the same, wants the same thing, gives the same messages, the same style of messaging, and the same kind of customer, which obviously is not the case. So cultural differences, peculiar country regulations, differences in product life cycle stages make this approach difficult. So as you're aware, I have a family that are living in Colombia, and over there the most modern phone that most people are using is something like a Galaxy S6 or an iPhone 6 or maybe an 8, but they haven't got up to the recent ones yet. So those are still the most popular models. So these haven't gone into the later stages of the life cycle, and therefore are still being sold at premium prices. So again, it just goes to show the difference of things that we have to consider just in something like the life cycle. We've already looked at regulations, how they can vary, especially when we're looking at particular regulations for if we're doing promotions and we're doing things of sweepstakes or anything like that, that it may be considered gambling. And again, the problems. Local advertising professional may resist local campaigns imposed from the outside, as you can imagine. It's particular reasons of advertising has been done outside the country, and they feel that they should be the ones doing it inside the country. So sometimes it's with a good reason, sometimes it's merely to preserve their own creative autonomy. However, various markets may have different cultures, hence the need for adaptation. If we're looking at global promotion, this is a strategy is when your company presents the same basic message of brand or product value around the whole world. This approach ties closer with a standardized product strategy. We have one product that goes throughout the world. The general idea is to present a universal product with benefits that will apply to customers in each targeted marketplace. And an advantage of a globalized approach is consistency, in that customers in each market can identify with your brands as they travel around the world. Now, we know that some companies, McDonald's being a particular example of this, they tailor their menus in messages in certain instances. As we know, beef is not sold in India, so they have to change certain parts of the menu. However, they still have a general message that they're still promoting. So in this case, the commitment of the global message is efficiency and good fast food. It's their message, just don't have to agree with it. So an international promotion strategy is when promotional messages vary from one country to the next, or where campaigns are tailored to different regions. This strategy is used with either the standardized or customized product. With a standardized product that has different uses, variations in market, project differences, benefits, or value proposition based on the uses in each market. Now, we will be looking at some examples, but if you think that this is very strange that one thing could have a different use in another market, but if we just look at something like Colgate toothpaste, and this is actually based on fact, in certain countries, the reason is for healthy teeth and gums. That's why people buy it. That is what it's for. It uses healthy teeth and gums. But for others, the fresh breath aspect of it is much more important. Same product, different benefits is perceived to be more important in another country or another region. So it goes to show the same product can be perceived differently or for different things in different regions. So with the customized product strategy, promotions are tailored to emphasize the value of the customized offering in each market. When this can generate stronger loyalty, especially where brands are perceived differently. And this is done usually with with customized promotion. Standardization may be appropriate in the following instances. So brands can be adopted for visual appeal to avoid translation into different languages. If we can sort of see it, we understand it, it's visual. Promotion brands using images with universal appeal, such as wealth, what we consider to show that, or maybe it's big houses, yachts, private aeroplanes. It's a universal appeal. And products that appeal to a market segment with universally similar taste, values, preferences, and needs. Arguably, the difference between, say, the UK or the USA. Yes, we understand there is the same language in most cases, but it's a similar kind of taste to those two. So the things that we have to consider. When we're talking about standardization or adaptation, in other words, use the same everywhere or change it to every particular market. Obviously, this includes the advertising we're using. Do we have to change the way we advertise, how we advertise, the actual method of how we're getting a message across, how we're portraying our product in an advert, what kind of appeals are we going to use to people, are we going to emphasize certain things. Sales promotion, the things that we're dealing with here, how are we dealing with that? Is a certain type of sales promotion acceptable in other countries? Is it normal that in certain countries they would have a loyalty card, or that cards would be stamped? Are they prepared to do that? Differences in values of how vouchers are seen. And then personal selling. Again, in some cases, going around and talking individually to people is quite normal. Where we would approach a customer, that's acceptable. In other countries, this is not acceptable. You can just see that as a rough example. If it's quite common in the UK that we do sort of door-to-door sales, where literally you would turn up and knock on somebody's door, or telesales, phone up to get an appointment to come around, and it's considered normal without any great deal of risk. However, in other countries, when I was living in South America, Colombia specifically, it's considered very suspicious. We don't know the company, it's a new company, it may not be real, it may just be somebody coming around to kidnap us. People knocking at the door asking to come in to show a device is considered highly risky and literally maybe putting yourself in peril, because of the difference of the country. So when one would work quite well in another, it would not work well in the other country. So if we're looking at the advertising strategy, well, just for the thing of what is actually said. So the appeals, how we appeal to people, how we express if something is where we're showing wealth and this is a benefit of using the product. Is that an acceptable thing in where we're going? How we show that. The themes that we use, maybe our idea of one particular thing is different of what is good family life is seen differently in other countries. And the overall communication style, how we actually communicate it. Then, of course, we have how it is said, so the execution of it, the language that we use. And I don't just mean whether it's in German or French, but again, it's the method of actually speaking. Is it casual? Is it formal? An example of that, I suppose, and I think I've touched on it before, of whether bad language is permitted, what we'd consider swear words in the UK, and that has been done here. There is actually the advert for a telecommunication company here cell phone company, sorry, and actually use the F word in their advert, which is fine over here in Spain. The wording was done in that part, obviously in English, but it's fine over here, but you just couldn't do that in the UK. This links into the next one with humour. Humour, again, differs in different countries. What is considered funny in one can be offensive in another. We've got to be very careful, the idea of how far we can go with humour. If it's a case of a cat falling off a chair, fine. But if it's something else where maybe the humour's a little bit black, is it too much? Is it acceptable in the other culture? Characters and roles, how people are seen, the role of the parent or the children or the woman. Is the woman expected to be in the house? Is it fine that she's shown being in a working or managerial position? How are those roles perceived? Are they acceptable to be shown in another light in another country? And then certain visual elements. Certain colours mean different things in different countries. It's not as straightforward as we think. Whereas green is considered bad in Japan, which you'll see at the end. You're going to have to find out why. I think death is white. Anything white is associated with death. Whereas white for us in this part of the world, in Europe, is for weddings. It's virginal, so quite the opposite. So again, certain visual elements. When we're looking at things like this, we mentioned language, so touching on that colloquialism. So if we look at slogans, an example of this, we've all heard the "I'm loving it," which is Burger King, I think. I don't know if it's Burger King or McDonald's, I always get those two confused, which actually is bad English. I love it or I don't. You can't actually say I'm loving it. And again, translating that may have some problems. The other one from Esso, put a tiger in your tank, meaning when you put the petrol in, you're giving it more force. Does it work in other languages? Pack den tiger in den tank. Especially, I find this quite ironic, amusing. Tiger, tank. World War II connotations of a very powerful tank that did a lot of damage to the people it came up against. I'm not going to do the other languages. My French is terrible. So, mettez un tigre dans votre moteur, or whatever. Does it work? Do they mean the same? Are they acceptable in other languages? In this case, probably, but again, be careful. The famous one was Mitsubishi coming out with a car, promoting a new car in South America, certainly in Colombia, which was the Pajero. It's a 4x4 car, so the new Mitsubishi Pajero. The problem is, in that particular country, Pajero is pretty much similar to masturbator or wanker. Not a good name for a car. So they had to change it. So it then became the Mitsubishi Montero, which is sort of mountain car. So Montero. So they, again, investigate how words translate, how they come out in other languages. So humor, how you use it and the type of humor that you use. What is acceptable? Maybe in some country acceptable to make fun of other nationalities. Can we do that? McDonald's have done it. Did actually do one with showing that maybe the ignorance of the Americans regarding Arabs, that they assume they all lived in tents, and so it kind of made fun of the Americans, but it kind of made fun of Americans making fun of Arabs. So it's quite tricky. Certain things in humour are fine if they're done in a non-offensive way, so be very careful of that. At least get someone to check it beforehand. Characters and roles, so identification of the target audience, gender roles, individuals and groups. We do tend to quite a lot make assumptions about certain groups and things, so be very careful of that. I think the worst case that came out recently, that was in the news last year, was a case where they brought an advert out for a soap advert in China. And what actually happened, you had a young Chinese woman putting her partner, husband, boyfriend, whatever, into a washing machine and coming out clean. That was the idea. But what they actually did was got I don't know where he was from, but a black man going in, and then they had a whiter man coming out. Obviously implying that the black man was only black because he was dirty, but he was a Negro, so he was an African. And needless to say, there were a lot of repercussions on that. Again, these adverts are actually viewable. You can still find them on YouTube, but not the way to go. Aesthetics, how things look. So it's the attitudes towards beauty and good taste in art, music, folklore and drama of a culture. So this is important, the interpretation of symbolic meanings of various artistic expressions. And we're going to be looking at some of these, especially if you consider that every country has their own kind of things that are important, with Chinese, with the dragons, or with certain elements that we know that mean different things in different countries. So multinational companies may be forced to take into consideration trademarks which may be acceptable in one country but unacceptable in another. So, for example, the Wise Corporation, which has an owl as a trademark, may have to change if they intend to market their product in India. The owl is a symbol of bad luck in India, though obviously it's one of wisdom in most other parts, in America and Europe. So once again, it just means check out what these things mean in other cultures. Be careful. Obviously, something we do have to consider, religious influences, depending on the country. Some are more strict, shall we say, than others. Obviously, I've picked here Saudi Arabia, perhaps the most strictest one on the planet for this, but certainly things that they do have an effect on advertisers. So 3 sets of messages from the Quran affect advertising. So the specific taboos, things that cannot be seen, either too much sensuality, and by that we mean quite a lot really, too much skin. You certainly can't have girls running around in their underwear. How women are perceived, how women are shown to be acting, quite a few things. So there's a lot of strict taboos, and obviously anything using images not permitted. You have to be very careful with duties that a Muslim must perform, the importance of God. So obviously all these things do depend on the strength of the religion in the area that you're going to be going to. And again, we have some examples of that later on. The choice of the promotional channels, cross-cultural differences, is in media availability and use. We tend to assume that, well, we, by that I mean people maybe in the West or a more technologically advanced country, that television, press and internet, their availability is the same throughout the world, and obviously it isn't. There are certain parts of the world that where there's preferences in other forms of media. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the internet is available where television isn't. Most people are getting their information from cell phones because there's actually good cell phone coverage. But newspapers are very restrictive, and television as well. Just a little note here regarding ethics, or how things differ, shall we say. So several years ago, the province of Quebec banned television commercials aimed at children. However, English-speaking residents of the Canadian province can view the ads for toys, cereals, snacks on television from Ontario or the United States. So in Europe, several countries place limits on advertising aimed at young consumers. Norway and Austria prohibited commercials before, during and after children's television programs. Toy ads are banned in Greece. Those who favour these restrictions point out that in Britain, the average child sees nearly 18,000 ads a year and about 25,000 if they're in the United States. So supporters of these laws also believe children are not able to carefully process the many messages received from commercials. In contrast, businesses believe these restrictions violate free speech rights. So where are you on this? Free speech? That children should be allowed to see things, or not infesting, shall we say, or polluting the minds of children. So again, where are we on this? I always find it amusing that the United States want to try and take the high ground. One company did actually put on, there was a public promotion done by one organization where it showed a picture of a Kinder Egg on one side and an assault rifle on the other, an AR-15 assault rifle on the other, saying that only one of these things is considered dangerous to children, and it's not the gun. It was the Kinder Egg, because the Kinder Egg, it's chocolate with a toy inside, that a child can consume and swallow and could do damage to, and maybe even choke. But it's quite fine if they go and buy an assault rifle. So that's up to you. So basically, again, you have to understand the laws in different countries, and then you decide if you think, obviously, once you've applied by the rule of law, what are you going to advertise? So pressures for promotion adaptation: written and spoken languages difference, differences in symbolic means, differences in humour, product use and preferences, lack of cross-cultural icons, value and norm differences, collectivism versus individualism, government regulations. We've covered most of those. The collectivism versus individualism is, especially if you consider, if we do one, certainly individualism, a country like the United States, where in many cases it's designed to show products or services that literally will put you above somebody else. It's to make you better. It's very individualistic. It's you can be successful. The important thing is you individually become a success and rise above everybody else. Rather, collectivism is more sort of a family-based, group-based, social-based, that we, the people, we look after each other. And so it's a different kind of a culture. And should we be pushing things forward, saying yes, you can show to your friend, make them jealous by you driving around in a Ferrari? Is that kind of thing acceptable? Are you an individualism or a collectivism culture? Right, now we have briefly mentioned this before, the push and the pull strategy. And obviously there's a difference of this in how things are done. Now, the pull, where it's focused on the end user of the buyer, in other words, they're pulling it from the company, they're making requests for that. So there's a dependence on sales promotion and advertising. It's advisable when the product is widely used by consumers, the channel is long, product isn't complex, and when self-service is predominant shopping behavior. In other words, it's there, it's available, they just take it. The push strategy focuses on the distributors of a product. Why? Because they're the ones pushing it out. They're the ones going to see people. So maybe you'll have incentives offered to the wholesaler or the retailer to carry and promote a product. In other words, it's in their benefit. They're taking more to put on their shelves to make sure it's there so they can push it onto the consumer. So many may resort to push when there's a lack of sort of overall advertising media or difficulty transferring the information. In other words, especially, or a lack of the pull strategy in a foreign market. In other words, if people aren't able to see the information for them, then we push it onto them in another method. So, personal selling, again, we've touched on. This is when a customer is met in person by a representative of the marketing company. In other words, the company that's actually selling the product. In international selling, company's sales force travels across countries and meets directly with clients abroad. Now, most cases in this, we're probably talking business to business, but not always. So it's international selling, and they go from their home country and go direct into all other countries and pretty much trained usually at the central location and do the same kind of techniques throughout. Local selling, in other words, we have a local office in the country that we're operating in, the new country, and they organize their own staff and the sales force. So in other words, they're made up of local nationals, the local area, and they're the ones that do the selling in that country to their own countrymen or women. Now, if we're doing this, let's say if we're looking at international selling, then obviously there are lots of things that are different. So purchasing behavior can change. We've seen throughout in other courses where the decision maker, there's a lot of input of who is the actual decision maker. Maybe not specifically the buyer, but the person who makes the decision. Could be the CEO of a company, so maybe there's someone who initiates it, who likes it, someone who has some influence, maybe some technical person, the actual users, or a gatekeeper. So all of those are involved in it, but depending on the culture of the area that you're working in, that they will have relatively different inputs. In some countries where maybe we're considered more logical, the main decision maker might be the person using that particular product. What do you think? Do you think this product can do this and this and this for us? Yes, I do, and that is enough. Maybe for others, there are certain influences that if that particular person whose their input is considered valuable, then if they agree to it, then they will take it on. And this may be a family member or not, but it can be a totally different person and not maybe necessarily who we would expect in our own culture. So again, we have to understand that. So actually, who is the decision maker and what roles do all of these have to influence that particular person? Further to international selling, buying criteria. So how the product or the vendors are selected may vary from market to market. In other words, maybe it's just the one person that would decide. It would go up to the boss. They would get some reports from certain people, and they would make the decision. In others, it may be a board of people, whereby they get a group of people in. Maybe there's other influencers that are brought in. Obviously, in this case, the language is going to be very important. Not necessarily everybody on the other board or the selection procedure may necessarily speak the same language that you are. So be careful of that as well when translating things. Literally, try and get someone at least who a good understanding of the other language to make sure that they know exactly what is being said or what inferences there are. And then business etiquette, how and when appointments and introductions are made, if gifts are presented, attending sales banquets and other social business occasions. In certain countries, it's very important to establish a relationship first before you start diving in and talking about the business. This is more the case with Chinese. However, with Americans, it's straight to business. So if we look at the role of the local sales force, now if there's the missionary sales force, they're visiting clients together with the local distributor sales force. In other words, they have somebody with them that is going along to help the locals, somebody sort of from head office, as it were, to help them along, make sure the message is precisely expressed, maybe to give backup to that person. Or a company-owned sales force. Company sales force ensures the personnel at the local level have the right training qualifications and uniform price negotiations. It's to stop people going in saying, well, yes, I know who you are, you're a respected member of the local community or something, and maybe give them too much discount, give them too many extra benefits or things that possibly could be included within a promotion, or taking it from other sales and giving it to them. So certain practices maybe that are considered acceptable in other countries that maybe not be acceptable in the home country. So it depends on it's a way of trying to give more consistency, shall we say, throughout the sales force throughout the globe. Foreign sales practices, well, the nature of the interaction between salespeople and local customers can be different market to market. So things can change of how they actually operate and work. In certain countries, the sales force can be quite brusque and insistent. In others, they take a more subservient role, shall we say. So cultural norms, well, just as an example, Taiwanese consumers prefer coupons to sweepstakes. Malaysians and Thais prefer sweepstakes to coupons, and the other way around. So again, you have to, this just goes to show that you have to do your investigation first. Government restrictions and regulations. Japan's limitation on value of promotional gifts attached to products is 10% of the product's price. In other words, if you can't actually give away something of a similar price, so really the kind of 2 for 1 is a bit difficult to do there. So if you have a shampoo for €5, you're only allowed to give something for the price of 50 cents to give away to sell for the first one. That is the maximum you're allowed to do, which is kind of quite restrictive, really. 10% is very restrictive. This actually covers so much of the things. We've got general things here. If we're looking at the sales promotion in a cross-cultural perspective, obviously who is the target? End user, those that actually use the product, or the retailer? What is ethical and legal? And then the other things that we have listed here, socio-cultural factors. Now, if we look at coupons, well, although we consider these maybe there are a particular sort of generic thing that everybody likes coupons. Well, as we've seen in some countries, no. First off, the level of literacy in some countries, the actual complexity of the things that are written on a coupon maybe is too much. That the coupon has an expiry date, it has to be used in this, it can only be used when you next buy this. And if you have a large amount of people who cannot read or read very well, you're going to have problems, not going to work. The consumer and the retailer's sophistication, how much they are used to doing these kind of things. Certainly in the US, it's very, not specifically that the consumer is sophisticated, but the level of sophistication for coupons is very high. It's almost become a particular cultural thing that there's books come out every week, there's distributions of coupons, they're in the newspapers, etc. And people know that it's very acceptable, it's normal that they have these. And it's quite normal that you go into a supermarket in the United States and the woman in front of you, probably with 2 carts, is literally has a handful of coupons, and she will redeem all these coupons, and it's quite normal and it's acceptable, and nobody thinks anything. That it takes 10-15 minutes just to tick everything off of the products, and another few minutes going through all the coupons. Meanwhile, you're stuck behind this person, maybe with just one item to buy, and you have to wait for, and it can be frustrating. I actually had this happen, that a couple of $100, and it finished up costing something like $80 with so many coupons. And yet, it's common there. However, in the UK, this is a bad thing. This is where we come into the low social status implications. In the UK, if you go into a supermarket and you have coupons, you're basically saying, according to their culture, which is mine, I'm from the UK, it's like, I don't have real money, I only have coupons. And it's considered, oh, you poor thing, it doesn't have real money. It's, you can only pay for this with coupons. And it causes embarrassment. And going into restaurants, something with a Groupon or something like that, which is still a coupon online, but say, I'm here for the Groupon promotion. It's kind of like, well, I'm only in this nice restaurant because there was some discount. I wouldn't be here otherwise, which may actually be true. But again, it's how these things are perceived, that some people are very conscious or self-conscious of this. And again, but not everybody, obviously. A very wealthy friend of mine who used to take his wife out for fish and chips every Tuesday, because that was when they got 2 for 1. So 2 fish and chips for 1 on a Tuesday. But I think that was just because he was tight. But there we go. I know that everybody else that knew him thought this was terrible of him, just to take his wife out on Tuesdays when it was promotional night at the fish and chip shop. But there we go. Right, contests and sweepstakes, the legal requirements. We've already looked at those, so we don't want to go into that. And that the prizes suit the target market tastes. So again, you've got to be careful of how these things, the actual prize that you're offering, is it appropriate and is it seen as something that they would want? So again, be careful of that. Price offers. In some countries where it's quite normal not even to have the price on, it's difficult to put a 20% off. In other words, you actually first of all highlight the original price and then highlight the fact that there is a discount. And in some countries, as we know, well, bargaining is quite the norm anyway, and therefore there's too much room to maneuver. So again, things to consider. Stamps and collections, where you literally have to collect stamps to be able to get something. You collect stamps on a card that once you have 8 or 9, then the 10th one is free. But obviously a future orientation is needed. People have to think in a longer term for this. That what, I have to buy 9 of them before I can get one free, and I only buy 1 a week. That's 2.5 months. So high inflation, maybe if there is a high inflation level, the things that you're giving away might be more expensive. The level of the sophistication of the channel, whether this can actually be done and developed, because it can be quite complicated. The next one, free samples. Again, very much depends on the culture, where not only the legality of it, but certainly the interpretation of something that's given for free. In some countries, again, getting something for free, as long as you've purchased something, is fine, perfectly acceptable. But for getting something outright free in some countries, it's considered incredibly suspicious, something wrong. There was actually a case when they were, I think it was the first £1 coin or £2 coin that came out, that there was somebody on London Bridge in London giving away coins. And apparently they had a difficult job giving away money, free money, because people were suspicious. Would you like to take this coin? They assumed there was something bad with it or something was wrong, and most people refused. But again, that's not everybody. I was offered some free beer, my favourite brand of beer, and I took it. I also got my wife to take one. She said, I don't really want a beer. Don't worry, I'll drink it for you. So again, it depends. And then, of course, theft of the sample products, including the very same salespeople that they know that they can sell stuff. They could keep the actual the free products back, not give them, and they could effectively take out the free products and take them home with them. Gifts, again, where something, it's more than a free sample, it goes beyond that, where it's literally given as a free sample would be the product itself. I bought some ingredients for a bakery, then those were things I would use within the bakery. Yeah, so that would be a free sample. But the gift would be something not connected with the business. So it might be, I don't know, a stereo, a cell phone, or a car, or something else, a pen. So again, gifts. So there's the legal requirements. And then the similar thing, those things can be actually be stolen or taken by the salespeople, and then down the channel, all the way through the channel, and then not be given to the customer. Right, sports promotions and sponsorships. Sports events increasingly covering by global media, so obviously the Olympics, the World Cup. So, which although they are world events, there are still, I think I'll be honest, I'm not a football fan, so I don't know much about this, but certainly the British FA Cup Championship, which is a British thing, is seen throughout the world. I know the Spanish one as well, when the main Spanish teams are playing. Real Madrid and Football Club Barcelona, that is literally seen throughout the entire planet. So obviously any kind of promotions done there, or sponsorships with it on the t-shirts or somewhere on the site, they are seen by literally billions now of people. Don't know the exact numbers, but it's over 1 billion. Sign space must have a logo or a brand worth exposing to a global audience. No point in spending a fortune on something that can only be seen only be bought in certain countries. So take into consideration popularity of certain sports and the segment they attract. Now, I'm not going to say anything particularly detrimental about football supporters, but consider the kind of product you have. Are those people the ones that are going to be buying that product? That's all we're saying. As a slight advantage, or slight, I would think it would work. And I think we've covered it here. In the case of Rolex, one of the things that they promote, a sport that they are sponsoring quite heavily, is yachting. Well, I think, obviously, good watch, yacht, kind of goes together. So you can see why that would work. So it can be done right. Yes, first big tip, get some help. Small business typically don't have the battalions of international experts and host country staff of major international companies do to guide them through the traps and pitfalls of marketing abroad. So as such, consider retaining an international sales consultant for assistance in developing and executing your foreign market marketing and sales promotion strategies. Now, I've actually done this, and it really is a good idea, although it's a bit self-serving of me to say so. But if you're going into other countries, is find someone who is there that understands that country, and you will avoid so many mishaps. And for some reason, a lot of them don't. Many consultants are industry specific. My specific thing would be more on the aviation world because of my background. For example, if your business is involved in hair care or beauty products, there are likely international sales consultants specialised in these industries. So they spare the need to reinvent the wheel. In other words, going around all the other stuff that you would have to go through in the first stage that you don't know. It's already done. Now, they're in demand precisely because they understand perfectly well and are well informed about the peculiarities of the market and promoting in specific countries. One example of when they did get it wrong, the free trip blunder. Sales promotions can go awry because of blunders that could be avoided through careful planning. So we're going to be looking at some of those. Well, we've got blunders, some good ones, some complete mess ups, and maybe it's very easy to see, obviously, with hindsight where they went wrong. Which is why I've got some here that haven't really been answered for you to look into. If you could find out what could happen before. There's this one is quite famous, the notorious one, the sales promotion. 1982, the Hoover vacuum cleaner in the UK. So for boost sales in a flat vacuum cleaner, they offered 2 free flights to a choice of 6 destinations on the European continent for the minimum purchase of £119 sterling, the price of its entry vacuum cleaner. In other words, you buy a cheap vacuum cleaner and you get 2 free flights to any of 6 destinations in the EU. Now, they were expecting about 50,000 respondents, in other words, 50,000 purchases. However, 200,000 actually responded to the offer, and including 100,000 respondents to a follow-up promotion that offered free flights to the US. So before the first promotion headed south, basically what happened, that all of these emptied Hoover's inventory of product, first of all, forcing it to change its workers to work to a 7-day work week regimen, and hiring more people so they could just process the applications of seriously annoyed customers. So they had to actually produce more vacuum cleaners to cover it. But all the profits were going on this massive ticket fest of selling tickets to them, or giving away the tickets. I cannot remember, I think I mentioned it before, but it cost them somewhere in the region of a couple of £1 million, £5 million, I think. So be very careful of that. We've got a good example now. Colgate promotional efforts in Thailand. So to become the largest selling toothpaste in Thailand, Colgate-Palmolive used a variety of promotional activities for its Colgate toothpaste. First, the company used Nok Lay children in its television commercial. This popular singing group was well known among young consumers and families and emphasized Thai heritage in the advertising. So mixing in with some of the local culture and adding it to yours. Be very careful with doing that. After the commercials attracted much attention for Colgate, the company distributed printed information about proper dental hygiene. Colgate then made drinking cups, notebooks, posters, audio cassettes highlighting both the singing group and the company product. This led to the creation of the Colgate New Generation Kids Club, whose members received a free dental checkup, bumper stickers, buttons, and other items. Excellent. So it can work. So think critically. What are the social and economical benefits of Colgate's action in Thailand? Go to the website of Colgate to get information about their international activities. Come up with other ideas that maybe you could use in your own company if you're going ahead with that. Still on Thailand, Dunkin' Donuts Love campaign. Mother's Day campaign, good cultural fit, the Thai importance on family, Queen Mother, etc. They integrated the promotion campaign with in-store promotion, sales promotion, packaging, public relations, and publicity. Very successful, very well done. Axe and Durex co-branded Thailand. Axe is positioned of a sexy brand, co-branding with condom manufacturer. Integration promotion campaign, premium packaging, inserts, flyers, and advertisement. Colgate-Palmolive promote toothpaste effectively in the Hispanic community through ads that place less emphasis on health and more emphasis on appearance. So we don't care about healthy teeth, we're more interested in shiny white ones. Again, same product, different use. What do we think is more important? And although we assume it would be the same thing, it isn't. Which is why, if you think about what they do now, certainly with Colgate, because they're a large company, they're able to do it, is adapt different products now. So we don't just have Colgate toothpaste anymore. Now it's Colgate, what's this one? Total Plus Whitening, and others maybe that are more for against particular gum diseases like gingivitis or whatever. Right, so we're going to have a look at some of the things. What went wrong? Really obvious in hindsight, but and it doesn't seem incredible that companies did not work this out. So products don't always sell in a new market. Think about these situations and what went wrong. Well, obviously I've given you the answers here to some of them. Oftentimes, the advertiser did not consider the target audience when they treated the product of the campaign. So Western companies had problems selling refrigerators in Japan until they changed the design to make them quieter. So Japanese prefer quiet when in their homes. Um, Again, if you think about it, sort of in the longer, well, in the bigger picture, it's obvious. We've seen on television that they have these very delicate houses, and the dividing walls between them are made out of paper. Well, if you've got a massive um, refrigerator making a humming noise there all night every time it wants to make things cold, which will go on and off during the night, it's not exactly conducive to getting a good night's sleep. Fairly obvious, but in the UK, where it's quite normal to have housing made of brick, the good insulation, and we live up or we sleep upstairs, you no way you can hear a fridge going on downstairs in the kitchen, but not the case in Japan. In Saudi Arabia, newspaper advertisements for an airline showed an attractive hostess serving champagne to happy passengers. Lots of passengers cancelled their flight reservations. If I remember rightly, the advert was actually produced by a British company who didn't really think about the cultural connotations. So obviously alcohol is forbidden in Saudi Arabia, and women are expected to be humble and covered. Certainly not sort of, flowing hair, smiling provocatively, as they put it. The other one, it's really hard to understand this one. An airline company called itself Emu after the Australian bird. And yet Australians didn't want to use the airline. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know what they were thinking. If you don't know the answers there, the emu is a large bird that cannot fly. So I guess the Australians had the image of sort of getting on board the plane, getting their seat, and then when they were about ready to take off, the plane would taxi out, go down the runway, barrel down to the end of the runway, and then come back to the terminal, because it can't fly. I don't think that was the case, but there we go. So even the Australians are delicate. A TV commercial for a cleaning product showed a little girl cleaning up the mess her brother had made. Again, we've said this about roles. The commercial caused problems in Canada. So it reaffirms the sexist idea females should clean up after male counterparts. So long history of feminism in Canada. So wrong place, wrong idea, wrong everything. Again, seems obvious now, but you would think so. The next one, not so obvious, but several European American firms couldn't sell their products in Dubai when they ran their advertising campaign in Arabic. 90% of Dubai, certainly the United Arab Emirates as a whole, are not Arabs. So that's why Dubai is an international multilingual city, as is the whole country. So besides Arabic, we have Hindu, Urdu, Bengali, Tamil, Chinese are spoken, and English, obviously. Last time I count, there was, I think, 250,000 Brits living in the UAE. So quite a lot. And if there's more than that of any other nationality, it's probably Indian or Pakistani. So again, English is probably the most common language there. Why? Because all the other country people, other nationalities also speak English. The next one, the laundry detergent had a picture of dirty clothes on the left, picture of the product in the centre, and clean clothes on the right. And nobody wanted to buy it in the Middle East. Well, in Arabic, you read the other way around, don't forget. So in our language, we would read this way to this way. So it starts out dirty, goes through the washing process, and comes out clean. But in Arabic, it would be nice, clean clothes, go through this process and turn up dirty. It looks as if the washing powder made your clothes dirtier. So, yes, really obvious, but it's not the things that people think about until it's too late. Right, the company had problems when it tried to introduce instant coffee to the French market. So the French drink short, strong, espresso-style coffee, which isn't possible to have with instant coffee. Also, coffee is drank in cafes and during those pause café, more so than at home where you would make coffee. If you drink coffee at home in France, you usually have a machine that makes good coffee. So again, not the right kind of market for you, not the way that they use it. A toothpaste manufacturer couldn't sell its products in Southeast Asia. In some cultures, people still use natural products like nuts, leaves, and twigs to clean their teeth. In some cultures, these natural items will stain or colour your teeth more yellow. Why would they do that? But this comes from an old belief that staining your teeth is a sign of wealth or importance within the community, and was also used on women after they were married. So, again, didn't know that. An American golf ball manufacturer launched its product in Japan, packed in boxes of 4. It had to change the pack size. 4 is an unlucky number in Japan. It's also happened with drinks as well. Anything they put in 4s, it's unlucky. I suppose it's the equivalent of 13 in Europe. We have dozens, but we don't have 13. Apart from the baker's dozen, which is 12 to sell, 1 for the baker. I know, I'm a baker's son. A few more. Well, we've done this one. Western companies problem selling refrigerators. I've done that one. Coca-Cola introduced a 2-litre bottle in Spain some years back. That didn't work because refrigerators in Spanish homes were too small to fit these rather large and ungainly bottles. Kellogg's Pop-Tarts in the UK didn't reach the successful sales in the US. The taste was too sweet for British consumers. We don't like the stuff too sweet. Again, this thing of translating the famous fried chicken hub, KFC, slogan, finger licking good, which is fine in English. When they translated that into Chinese, it came out as eat your fingers off. They were trying to get the same thing and it just didn't work. And this can happen quite a bit. Not much easier for Coke's rival, Pepsi. They entered the Chinese market a bit later, so Pepsi brings you back to life got a little more literal than intended. In Chinese, the slogan meant Pepsi brings your ancestors back from the grave. Again, not what you want. Braniff translated a slogan touting its upholstery, flying leather, meaning it's leather upholstery. However, in Spanish, huele en cuero actually means in cuero now means naked. So it really means fly naked rather than leather upholstery. Not quite the same. Right, a few more. Eager to attract customers from the local Muslim community, a shoe store in Leicester, England, advertised its footwear with the saying in Arabic, "There is no God but Allah." A subsequent attack to the store with a car ramming through the front window was claimed to be a protest. Although the desire to attack the local Muslim market was well intended, the implementation was ill-conceived. Why? Well, okay, I think that's maybe a fairly obvious one. Next one, a Nike television commercial showing US basketball star LeBron James in a battle with animated cartoon kung fu masters and 2 dragons was banned in China. Why? A telephone company tried to incorporate a Latin flavour in its commercials by employing Puerto Rican actors. In the ad, the wife says to her husband, "Hurry up and phone Mary. Tell her we will be a little late." Why does that not sound right? To promote its products in Singapore, an entertainment promoter booked a famous female local star, Anita Sarawak, and during her performance encouraged her to hold a pet dog, a small poodle, I believe, and singing "Me and You and a Dog Named Boo," quite a popular song in the US some years ago. This gimmick had worked well in other countries, but caused a major commotion in Singapore, and plans for subsequent tape broadcasts of the Chow was cancelled. Chow meaning dog. Why? A beer company attempted to sell its beer in Hong Kong using the message that the beer was so good that even the Irish like it. The Irishman used in the promotion wore a green hat while he was drinking beer. Green being lucky for the Irish, but what did it mean in Hong Kong? A firm trying to introduce its mouthwash in Thailand promoted its product through an ad that showed a young couple holding hands, but the commercial was very ill received. Why? So they're the things I'll leave you with. So you can go and check up on those and find out what went wrong with those. So that is all we have for you today. We have the final one coming up now, and after that is the end of the course. So The last thing to say is things to consider before you go international, the big cultural difference. What I would also say to you is think about the things of maybe where you are, and compare your culture with that of another different culture. If you're from the US, how is it with Arabic? If you're from Arabia, how is it different from Chinese, etc.? And think of the things that would need to adapt to maybe sell a particular product in one part into another. And how do you feel about some of the things that we've looked at today? So I'll leave that with you today, and thank you. See you in the next one. Bye bye.